Back on the Chain Gang, Message of Love are amongst them. I talked here to surviving founder pretenders, Chrissie Hynde and Martin Chambers, about the group's history, a lot of rock and roll, and a lot of real life. There seemed to be a long time between the first couple of singles and the release of the album, Pretenders. Was it a gap that you felt a lot of pressure about, that we had to get something out?
On the first
Well, the thing was we hadn't really played, and we were, during the recording of the first album, we'd recorded a couple of tracks, and then we'd go off and do a little tour here and nip up to Birmingham and do a gig, so it was spread out because we were still finding our feet as a band as well. The whole thing was, you know, taking its time to come together, so. And we weren't really working at a great pace with Chris because there didn't seem any point. It was our first record. Why should we hurry it, you know?
Well, it came out ironically and very well timed, as Brass in Pocket was a smash single. After looking like it was going to stop, I recall it had gone up only one place, 46 to 45, something like that. Then it spurted, went to #1, and of course your album was the first #1 album of its year. And a major success in the States as well. Did it catch you unprepared at all?
I didn't really think about it too much. I remember at the time I'd been thrown out of my flat, and I had other things on my mind. I wasn't, you know, I'm not that impressed with the chart position and all that. It's not really my concern very much. I guess it was a surprise. And you know, there's a lot of people around that think it was just hyped into the charts, which I don't know too much about that. I mean, maybe it was hyped into the charts, you know, but in England, it wasn't. I don't think they could have hyped it into the charts all over the world, though. And anyway, I don't even care because, like I said, that's not really my concern. But I know there was a program on when we were in America about that. And then the guy who ran the record company, who we were all really fond of, got sacked and everything because of this hyping thing that was exposed on television, which was pretty silly, really. Particularly when you look at the way things are sold nowadays, where it's all merchandising techniques and all that. But, you know, we just get on and make the records.
Like Tattooed Love Boys had been told from the male point of view, there wouldn't have been that much attention given to the lyrical content.
Well, it's kind of hard to say, you know. I mean, yeah, in that song, you know, it was really the story of, it was the girl's tale, you know, but I mean, there's a lot of characters in every story, you know. Someone has to get their say in.
So there's 20 doors around her heart, black and blue, pretty love boys. I tore my knees, look at them too, because I needed to find out what the thing was for. I've been reading. A man's time came to explore. I went A-fire, because I thought like I liked it. Little tease, but I didn't mean it. But you mess with the goods, doll, you gotta pay. Yeah. A good time was guaranteed for one and all. The tattoos, target practice in the hall while waiting for their number to get called out. I found out what it was about. I was a good time, yeah. I got pretty good at changing tires upstairs, bro. I shot my mouth off and you showed me what that hole was for. Now.
Did you enjoy Grace Jones' cover of Private Life?
I thought it was fabulous.
Yeah. I mean, she had.
I thought it was better than ours too. Well, I don't know if it was better, but I certainly was flattered, you know, that someone would even cover one of our songs. To me, that means it's a real song if it's coverable.
Janema, with your theatrics, your acting's a drag. It's okay on TV, but you can turn it off. Your marriage is a tragedy, but it's not my concern. I'm very superficial. I hate everything official. Private life, mama, baby, leave me out. Private life, mama, baby, leave me out.
Talk of the Town was a single that came out after the first Pretenders album. Did you enjoy the freedom of making a couple of singles not specifically for an album?
Well, for me, singles are sort of where it's at. That's what I always wanted to do, is just make singles. And that's why we put them on the... I'm not very prolific. I don't write songs in my sleep the way they say Elvis Costello does or someone, you know. You can really keep knocking them out all the time. I like to take it slow. I'm doing other things. So we put out a single and then put them on the album. It's the way we do it.
That song appeared, although a bit tenuously, in the film Times Square, as I recall.
So I heard, yeah.
Did you ever see it?
No. I wasn't interested. I knew it was probably, you know, pretty lousy movie, so why go see it? I mean, I don't care if oh, it was crap, you know, we all know that. So,
Don't beat about the bush, Chris. Say what you mean.
You know, I don't want to go see it because my song's in. I mean, I don't care whose songs are in it, you know.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with me.
Johnny LaGuardia is the name. WJAD is the station. It's 94.7 on your FM dial. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Come on, come on.
Dave Hill has mentioned that the last date of the tour, a lengthy tour, to promote that Pretenders 2 album, was, in a sense, so wacko that it was a suitable way of ending that particular band. Do you recall that gig, which I gather was in Bangkok?
Very well, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For the start of it all, when we did a sound check, that was all hired. Everything was hired except the guitars and stuff. And my monitor system that I was listening to just behind the drum kit was pretty inadequate, as a lot of things were, but there was like a good vibe going. I mean, it was like very...
Oh, it was great. I mean,
eventually the PA blew up at the end of the sound check, and they had to take all my monitors and everything off the stage to bolster up the PA system, and we only had, I think, the drums and vocals in the PA, and everything else was turned up on stage. So it was like, you know, against the odds. And whenever it's a bit like that, I think we always like come through, and it was just a great night. It was a bit scary
it was
too.
more rock and roll for me. It
Yeah.
was more what it's all about, because we had very, very small... I mean, I had my usual setup, which is my little Fender Twin, and that didn't change, but I mean, all the other guys were going through, you know, almighty, huge speakers and everything, and it gets bigger and bigger and louder and louder. And it's just, to me, rock and roll doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be shaking the walls down 2 blocks down. You know, it's...
When I look up from my pillow, I dream you are there with me. Although you are far away, I know you'll always be near to me. I go to sleep, and imagine that you're there with me. I go to sleep, and imagine that you're there with me. I look around me and feel you are ever so close to me. Each tear that flows from my eye brings back memories of you to me. I go to sleep, and imagine that you're there with me. I go to sleep, and imagine that you're there with me.
At the end of that tour, you did ask Pete to leave the group, and I gather you've said since then that you didn't realize how bad his problems were at the time. Had there been a rapport within the group that you felt was unraveling?
Oh, there was very strong degeneration in the band, yeah, and it started, I was thinking about it this morning, actually, with the drugs and all that. That started on the first album. I mean, I can remember getting high with Pete myself when I had to go in to record, I was doing the vocal on Lovers of Today. I was thinking about it this morning, and I couldn't hit any high notes because I was stoned. I never did that again. I was really quite ashamed of myself to go in that sort of a state. But Pete just progressively seemed to get more and more into it, and that's, he wasn't really owning up to us how, you know, what sort of a state he was in. I guess we all sort of guessed, but it was more of a personal and a musical thing. It was everything. It was right across the board. It's very hard to put into a nutshell, and obviously quite, you know, painful. You know, before he died, it was, I still couldn't come to terms with the whole situation, firing him and everything, and I never got a chance to sit down and make it up again because, well, I suppose it's very, very much like a divorce, you know. You know things are going horribly wrong, but you just can't seem to work it out, and it probably takes years and years and of regrets, and it's a very painful thing to happen, and you just don't seem to be able to help it. And that's how I felt after that. I just kept feeling like it was I thought, now I know what it must be like to go through a divorce, because nothing could be more like that than what we went through with him.
I think Pete was a real gentleman for a start, and it was a very, very traumatic period of time. I mean, because the things were going downhill rapidly, and it was at rehearsals that it showed a lot too, because that is the most important part of a band to a point, is rehearsing the new stuff and rehearsing stuff to go on the road. And if that isn't working, there is no band, and that was basically what was happening. So
yeah, it was taking a long time to work out new material, and you know, we have to talk about it now because people who are interested in the band really want to know what the story is, where's Pete and all that, but it's such a personal thing, and it was, you know, a personal tragedy. I know for me, I only speak for myself now, but as we didn't ever, it doesn't seem like we ever really explained it very well to him. I feel it's not fair that we're explaining it to the rest of the world, and I don't even know if he ever understood, so.
I've known in my own personal life that some people, no matter how much you love them, cannot be saved by your attention because there's some need which actually has nothing to do with us, which leads them to do what they do. Has that freed you from feeling any guilt at all personally about what happened to Pete?
I don't feel guilt. I just feel a horrible feeling, a horrible sense of loss. Possibly when someone that you're very close to dies, for whatever reason, especially if it's sort of self-inflicted, you know, a suicide, or in Pete's case, you know, a drug overdose. I think probably all the people around wonder, wasn't there something I could have done, or was it my fault somehow, or the last time we met, should I have been kinder, or should I have called him more often, or I think everyone that knows the person somehow feels like they're responsible. Certainly, just about everyone around me, I think, must have felt that way. I certainly felt like it was like 100% my fault that the guy wasn't with us anymore, and, well, after speaking to a lot of people that knew him and speaking to his mother, and, you know, it's nothing you can ever really shake off. It's just a very sad thing.
This is a case where, unfortunately, you do have to at least face questions about the death of Pete and also Jim.
Oh, yeah, of course, you know. It's, I only wish that there was an understanding on it.
Is there something else you wish to say about Pete's death?
It was just on the cards for such a long time, and sound checks as we, you know, across America, as we did our, day after day, as we did our sound checks, you know, there'd be some sort of an argument, and we'd say, look, you know, maybe you should be in another band. Pete was going in another direction musically, really, and it happens in every band. After a couple of, you know, you initially get the 4 or 5 people together because you're all meeting on the common ground, and you're all sort of under one attitude or whatever, and you know, eventually after a few years, people always drift and go in their own directions. Jimmy was going in a different direction as well, but he and I still were a lot more, he'd still call me up if he had an idea, and Pete just sort of drifted off. He was definitely taking a different direction musically, and that, it was obvious. But I think maybe probably because he was pretty stoned out, he didn't see it. It was there. Everyone else could see it. It was very obvious that the thing wasn't happening.
Well, to those of us who knew them more casually than you, it did nonetheless seem that Jimmy was far more into the music at the time of his death, which happened only a couple of days after he'd sacked Pete, and indeed that it was all a horrible accidental event. Were you looking forward to a good future with Jimmy at the time that he died?
Well, he was the keenest of the lot at that point. Well, you probably were as well. Of course, I was pregnant. And, Jim was gung-ho. He couldn't wait to get back in the studio. We were going to record Chain Gang, and I'd spoken to him when he'd been in Dallas, and I was in London. We'd had a bit of time off, and I spoke to him on the phone, and he said, we were talking about the song Chain Gang, and he was saying, I got a load of new chords for this one part, and I was playing it last night, and he was well into it. And he was very gung-ho to go out and find a bass player. He was so keen.
I found a picture of you. Oh, what hijacked my world that night to a place in the past we've been cast out of. Oh, now we're back in the fight. Back on the train. Oh, back on the chain gang.
When he died, I've never had that feeling of, I know he was in good spirits. I know he was up. He was, you know, I never felt, I miss him like crazy, you know. I think about him every day and I wish he was here, but Jim, because of the person that he was, you know, I still, when I think of Jim, it's always like with a lot of humor, always. You know, I think of Jim all the time, you know, you see I'll be playing, you know, and I'll see a chick up in one of the front rows with really big tits, you know, and I'll turn and I'll think like, Jim he's got to see this. You know, I mean, he was just I only think of Jim in a very, you know, humorous light, so.
You dedicated Back on the Chain Gang to Jim, and I had thought, before I had learned that you'd written it before his death, that it was actually about him. It just seems so eerily apt. What had actually inspired you to write that song?
It did start out where I found a photograph of someone in my suitcase when I was rummaging through it one day. And that's where it says I found a picture of you. That's how the thing started, so. And then, I don't know. There's an element of prophecy in songs usually. Sometimes you write something in, like the song "The Adulteress." I was writing that before I met Ray Davis, and I did feel a little bit of a heel when it came out on our next album, you know, and he was getting divorced, you know, because of me and all this. That's the way it goes. That's the way the cookie crumbles.
I'm the adulteress that I didn't want to be. That I'm convenient, that I make her tea. I stand accused of the worst crime in history. I'm the adulteress. That's my mystery. I'm the adulteress. Go to the park with a bag of consular goods. That's where we meet without words. He takes my hand and stares into the wood. There's nothing to understand. it's understood. I'm the adulteress.
Luckily, it seems you didn't have that much excruciating time delay in finding your two new pretenders. They came rather quickly, didn't they?
Yes, well, it was fortunate for us in many respects that sometime before Jimmy's death, we considered having another person on the road with us on stage, a guitarist probably, because Jimmy played great keyboards too. So the idea was to get another guitarist, and then maybe Jimmy could play keyboards in certain songs.
He did play great keyboards, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, that was the idea. So, obviously, after Jimmy's death, you know, he knew this chap, Robbie McIntosh. So after Jimmy's death, he was the obvious person to get in touch with to start off auditions, and he proved to be, you know, great. So after a couple of days of auditioning loads and loads of guitarists, it seemed obvious to us that we would persevere with Robbie and see how things worked out. And then a friend of his who was a bass player, Malcolm Foster, who Jim had also expressed an interest, so.
Good luck, Chrissie.
Thanks.
With the beat in Message of Love.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, as an example of the way that you would approach your work, how that particular rhythm was devised.
Well, Chrissie, first of all, said this is how the beat goes, which she doesn't always say that, of course, but I mean, on that particular occasion.
That's what that song was about more.
It was like
so.
the Gary Glitter type, you know, because he'd had several hits with that sort of rhythm, and it was...
So when we worked it out,
fun.
Martin was at the drums, and I was like, no, hit that one. No, hit that one twice, you know, no, don't do that. And, you know, don't hit that cymbal, you know, and I kind of trying to show him, but I can't play, but, you know, I piece it together like that. And then when it sounded like what I kind of had in mind, we went on from there.
Then we made up a 24-track drum loop.
Then about a week later, we got Jerry McElduff in, because Martin just couldn't get it.
Shut up. No, that was good fun doing that, because it was a fairly spontaneous track, that one.
Yeah.
Great fun.
But the reason we're here is man and woman is to love each other, take care of each other, and love walks in the room. Everybody stand up. Oh, it's good, good, good. Like Bridget Butter.
In many reviews of the album or responses to the news of your tours, I've heard references to the Phoenix-like Pretenders or the survivor Chrissie Hynde. I could sort of feel you squirming at this back from the dead type press.
You did real good getting the band back together, Chris, yeah.
They, you know, you go away, you don't do anything for a couple years, and then you go out and you're making your comeback, you know? So I just laughed. I don't care. To hell with it. They'll always pick up some angle, you know. It's I think Crawling from the Wreckage has been this sort of going byline, headline.
Middle of the Road was the first single in America from the album after its release, or before its release, but Chain Gang had been well before it. And, of course, it's now finally been released in Britain as a single. Wasn't that also inspired by your trip to the Third World?
Yeah, there's certainly some references in there about that.
Middle of the road, it's trying to find me. I'm standing in the middle of life with my pants behind me. I got a smile for everyone I meet. As long as you don't try dragging my bag or dropping the bomb on my hitting the road. Come on now, in the middle of the road, yeah. In the middle of the road, you see the darndest things. Like fat guys driving around in jeeps through the city wearing big diamond rings and silk suits. Past corrugated tin shacks full of kids. So man, I don't mean a Hampstead nursery. But when you own a big chunk of the bloody third world, the babies just come with the scenery. Now come on, baby.
And that on the album, along with Chain Gang and 2,000 Miles, which...
Let's face it, there's not much of an album there, is there?
You
have the singles.
Yes. Well, that's what people want these days, though, isn't it?
Well, if they don't want to buy it, they don't have to, you know. I don't. Again, I've always encouraged people, don't buy the record, go out and tape it off of someone that has it, you know. Well, no, I think that's what you should do, you know. Why spend all your money on records? If you can tape it, you know, buy a cassette player and tape it.
We spend an awful lot of money making good quality stuff, and they can go and tape it off somebody else and listen to it on a scratchy old Sony doing.
Oh, I used to listen to stuff on a tiny little record player, and it sounded okay to me. This whole thing about, I had to laugh when I see these, what is it, the skull and crossbones that says, you know, people that work for record companies have them stuck on the windscreens of their cars, and it says, home taping is killing music.
Live music, yeah.
And, you know, I mean, it's killing the music industry, but it's not killing music, you know. To me, I think we can't get enough of it, you know. But maybe I shouldn't say that because that's what makes me rich. But, you know, I don't want to be rich, so, particularly. But I say, you know, don't buy the record, tape it. And I'll send you a copy of the sleeve. You write to the record company. We'll send you a picture of it if you want that to look at.
2,000 miles is very far through the snow. I'll think of you wherever you go.
You've been touring with your daughter, Natalie, and everyone around you says it suits you. You're a, dare I say, a more mellow person.
Well, I'm an older person, too, so.
Do you find that makes it easier?
That I'm older? No, I think it makes it more possible that I'm more mellow. I mean, I can't help it. I just don't have, what do they say? My get up and go got up and went. And it's hot here, too.
Have you any further ambitions for 1984, or just to continue in the current groove?
We've still got a lot of work to do, actually. I mean, we're here in Sydney now, but we've got a tour of America to get on with pretty soon. I'm screaming for as much as that bloody parrot, actually.